Hello, and welcome to the Intelligent Gentleman podcast. I am your host, Milt Walker, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about the enjoyment of unfolding. In the past few weeks or month or so, we've really been discussing spiritual evolution and what that looks like. So I want to kind of touch base and talk about what that looks like from a transitional state, which just means during the journey, right? As you're going, we talked about the 4 phases of spiritual evolution. But what does that look like? We talked about how it's non-linear and that, you can kind of phase between them, and so on and so forth. Good evening, Honey Renee Gunn, my great friend. I appreciate you joining. Thank you so much. But let's talk about unfolding and what that really means. Unfolding is the journey of your spiritual evolution. That is the entire journey altogether. Good evening, Ebony. Good evening. So as your spiritual journey unfolds and you start to evolve, you go through these phases, but it's a good practice to focus on the journey, right? And not get so caught up into which phase you are in and everything of that nature. Good evening, Queen Tracy. Thank you so much for your energy. I appreciate that so much. So when you focus on that, and you start to become aware that you are on this journey, and you can do this through many practices, a few, of course, meditation, breathing exercises. Some of the meditations that I look at and do occasionally are the let me make sure I say this right, the Isha Kriya meditation, and it's a form of yoga. And what that is, it really concentrates on you. Hey, Rashonda. Hello. Thank you for stopping by. It just really goes to talk about, it's a science, it's a practice to help you become aware that you are not your body and you are not your mind. You have a mind and you have a body, but you are not your body and you are not your mind. Those are tools, those are faculties that you have to help you navigate in this physical realm, right? But your spirit is the true you, right? Which is eternal. And one of the things I like to talk about is timelessness, and being in a state of timelessness where you're not thinking about the future or the past, you're thinking about now, right? But you're thinking about it from an infinite standpoint, meaning now is always constantly happening. So what we perceive as time, which is just an illusion, is really just a now moment drawn out infinitely. So what does that mean? It means that when we start to look within ourselves, we must learn to look at that part of us as timeless and not something that's, it's gonna, I'll do something or be something else later or whatever the case may be. No, that part of you is timeless, and it comes from a source that is timeless, that is infinite, right? It's part of that, as we talked about in the other episode of the podcast. you are a part of the source of life, of where life comes from. You are an extension of that. So being an extension of life, you also are timeless. You also are infinite. So therefore, when we say things and we come to understand things about being patient and being patient with yourself, especially, that's where that comes from. Because understand that you're not in a rush. You're not trying to get somewhere as fast as possible. I know that's what, I know that's what's taught to us a lot of times, and we want to use measuring sticks to measure ourselves against, time to say that we did something in a certain amount of time or whatever the case may be. But honestly, that should never be your focus. That should never be your primary focus. You should always be focused on the timelessness of yourself, so let's put that into perspective. By focusing on the timelessness of yourself, you focus on the things that won't change about you, right? That's evolving about you, that's unfolding about you. Yes, so you focus on that. So as you focus on that, it's constantly elevating. It's constantly becoming better and better and better and better, which affects those things that that actually do change, right? Like those things will fall off. You would change, and sometimes you change for the better, and people see you as a totally different person, and they're like, wow, you just changed completely. You're not the same person. And that's true. I mean, in the sense that the things that I was carrying with me that weren't really part of my journey, and the things that people might identify with you with, those things, yes, those things are no longer me. So what you're seeing is, and you can think about it like, if you want to think about it in terms of fruit, you can think about it like a banana. As it peels back the shell, you expose the fruit, right? The true fruit, not just the casing, or if you think about a butterfly, and a caterpillar, you think about how the cocoon encases it, and as you eat your way through it, but it's struggle, right? So we can generalize that into just saying we struggle to, right, Ebony, metamorphosize into our true self, right? So we that's part of, it's all part of the journey. So again, we're talking about the unfolding and the enjoyment of the unfolding, right? Because if you're not finding joy in becoming who you're becoming, then that means you're not becoming who you really are, because you will enjoy becoming who you really are. 100%. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that. You will find bliss. You will find joy in becoming the truest form of yourself, which is aligned with the divine truth, right? And when you become aligned with that, it activates your ability to receive those feelings of bliss, peace, joy, right? It's so funny. I always bring this up, but it still amazes me to this day, and it's a spiritual lesson for me that people would say to me, like, why are you always so happy? You every time I talk to you, every time I see you, you're smiling, you're laughing, you're having fun. What's wrong? Like, they expect that it's hiding something, right? So because people don't want to accept that for a human being, it's your natural state to actually be happy. That is your natural state, is to be happy. It doesn't mean that you don't have emotions, it doesn't mean that you don't experience emotions, but you should always default back to happiness, always, and enjoying the journey, enjoying the unfolding, right, of your spiritual evolution is a good way to do that, because it can remind you at any given moment that you're in the process of evolving into something greater and part of a greater purpose. And so as you remember that, that should bring joy, happiness to you, because that's life's true purpose, is to become the best version of itself, right? The best version of life, and it's always constantly evolving, always. There is no exception to this rule. Ebony says, we rob ourselves of the moment by being anywhere but in it, right? That's just like if you, and my last guest that was here, that was part of her, it's part of one of the messages that she talks about, which is being present in love, right? Because it's one thing to say, okay, I love a person, but then it's another thing, a person, people, whatever. Then it's another to say, but it's another thing to focus and be present on that person. And we've all experienced that. We've all experienced the feeling of being around someone and being the focus of their love, or not being the focus of their love, right? And what that feels like in comparison. Not to say that you have to be, not to say that any one person has to do that or anything of that nature. We're not talking about that. We're just saying that when you look into yourself and you find love, and you find love for yourself, and you're unfolding into that, and you're growing into that, it's natural for you to be that, right? So you're being love, and as you're being love, people feel that and they're attracted to that, right? I was having a conversation the other day where we were talking about that, and we were talking about, I was really having a moment of clarity where I understood, like, a lot of times, in my life, I've had people be around me and they would tell me how I make them feel, right? And it was always positive, right? It's, you always, you're positive, whether it was in, corporate world, whether it was in my relationships, whether it was in, my family, whether it's in my, my community, people would always say, oh, well, you got this aura, you got this vibe about you, right? And again, that's because I choose to be that. I choose to be happy. I choose to always try to see the silver lining and try to see the positive in situations, right? Tracy says, I like that default to happiness, right? Make that your default. Make that your default. You want your default to be, the best you possible. Let's put it that way. You want your default to be the best you possible. So when you do have days where you don't feel your best, that's okay. You can always remember and think, and you know what? But that won't last. And I will return back to my default, which is the best me possible, right? So this is what unfolding is, right? Unfolding is becoming that best part, those best parts of you, and some of the things that you probably haven't even experienced about yourself yet. That's another thing about it. A lot of times we're so afraid to look within and face the things that are what we call our experiences, that we really keep ourselves at bay by limiting with those limiting beliefs, and don't really fully embrace who we are, right? So therefore, if it's something that you need to release, you don't even know it, because you don't search within yourself. A lot of times, when you might have, it's so funny because, they talk about toxic traits now and everything like that, right? And so one of the ways that you see within yourself, right? Because it's one thing for somebody else to see it and say it to you. Could be true. Doesn't have to be true. It could be some type of manipulation or something like that. But one thing that's always going to be true is your self-reflection. And when you look within yourself and you can say, is this me? Do I do this? Or you catch yourself doing something, you become aware, right? Again, through meditation, it helps you with this. You become aware of something that you're doing, and then you say, that's not where the work ends, becoming aware of it. The work then becomes to find where the source within you, that particular behavior or thought or, resides, right? And then you go within. You go within, you look for it, right? You look to find, okay, where is this coming from? And it may take you some time. It may be something that you can readily feel and observe, but it may not, right? Sometimes we're suppressing, emotions. We've been suppressing emotions for years. So especially in this culture, so if that's the case, then it could literally be buried below a whole bunch of other layers of you that you have to kind of peel back to understand, right? But typically they have recurring themes, right? So a theme that connects them, right? So if it's something that deals with anger, it's probably a time where either someone was angry with you or you were angry at them or angry with yourself about, some type of decision. And so I'm just kind of keeping it very general so you can kind of use that as a compass to say to yourself, like, okay, so I'm feeling this emotion. And when I feel this emotion, it's when this particular thing happens. So let me rewind. Let me, step back. Let me follow this trail back to where this actually comes from, right? Where does this come from? So then I start thinking to myself, okay, where are times in my life that I've been in this situation before? Right? Where I've reacted this way. Was the same thing happening? Was it the same person? Right? And this is, so all of these things are just conversations and reflections that happen within you. Right? And again, a good time to do that is when you're meditating. Because what you find, and a lot of people say this, and, I try to help them with this, but they say, well, it's hard for me to meditate because I have so much stuff on my mind. And I tell them that's good, because actually you're not trying to stop anything from coming to your mind. Meditation is not thinking of nothing. That's not what meditation is. Meditation is having thoughts come to you, but not responding. And that starts with the physical, right? Starts with the physical, where you just observe that thought, that emotion, like you're watching somebody else go through it, right? You just observe it, right? That's first. Next, you take that ability to see that emotion, right? And then you connect it to some things that you actually do, right? So if it's, say for instance, again, like if it's something about you getting angry, right? So you're watching these thoughts come by, right? And you're seeing these things, and then boom, that emotion comes from a specific thought. So it's tied to that. So you see the connection, but you have to be aware. You have to quiet the noise, right? You have to, and that doesn't mean it's not coming to you, but you have to learn how to just tune it out. It's focus, right? So you're focusing, and you may be focusing on certain points, different meditations do it differently, but you can focus on certain sounds. You can reflect on sounds and so on and so forth. So typically you're focused on something, and as you're focused on that, when the thought or the emotion comes to you, boom, then it's going to take your attention, right? It's going to try to take your attention anyway. So once it does and you observe it, then you bring yourself back, you center again, and then as you center, then you can watch it as it does whatever it does, right? Which is a physiological response typically that your body has. It could be raised heartbeat, it could be pain. It can manifest in physical pain in your body. It can be a lot of different things, but the key point that I want to kind of keep it to is you're observing the thought, the emotion, and the response, right? Those are the things that you're observing. And once you have a good catalog inventory of that, then the real work begins. Then you can begin to, so if it makes you angry when you think of something, now the work is to release the anger, right? Because the pent up anger is going to cause physiological responses in your body that's going to manifest as stress that's gonna harm your body in some kind of way, right? And we all know that parts of your body are connected to other parts of your body that you don't even know that they're connected unless you study that type of thing. And then you realize that oh man, so when I'm getting upset, which one that kind of people know of more so than anything else. Like when you hold on to anger and resentment, it hurts your heart. It causes heart problems, right? Your heart gets weaker because it's pumping so much because of the physiological response to that emotion, that it makes your heart weaker, right? And as your heart gets weaker, it causes those heart complications, right? So as you purge those things from yourself, your body has a chance to relax and return back to its normal, say this again, its normal homeostasis, its normal mode of balance. Because that's the natural state of your body, is to be in balance. Not to be out of balance. That's not natural, right? It was an interesting point that I want to make about that. Just recently, Google announced that, Google has already been crowned the quantum supremacy company for their ability to create quantum computers, right? They have a quantum computer. It works. They can use it. It's using physics, quantum physics, to do these things, which is exponentially more powerful than normal computing, right? Long story short, they were able to create what is called a time crystal. Okay, now what this means is, and I'm just going to do it in very layman terms, and so if you want to study this, please go and look it up. It's real stuff. Go look it up and check it out yourself, so that you can see what I'm saying. But what it essentially does is it creates what we view as a paradox, but what it really is it's a new phase of matter, right? Now remember, we use these words and terms to define our understanding of certain things, right? So like we used phases to define our spiritual evolution, right? So this is where it gets very interesting. Now this time crystal, right, that they created, it doesn't follow the same laws of physics. what that means is, and specifically the second law of physics, which is the law of thermodynamics, right? Which I'm not going to bore you with all that. I'm just going to say this, typically, matter decays. It does what they call entropy, which just means that it falls into a state of disorder, right? That's typical, which we perceive as a lot of things like aging, sickness, when your cells break down, it causes certain diseases and stuff like that, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So that's, I'm trying to put it together for you in a very layman's way. Okay. So, with that being said, what this time crystal exposes is that there is another phase of matter that does not fall into disorder, that does not have to, the energy doesn't have to dissipate, right? It doesn't have to change and turn into something else, right? So what does that mean? It means, so think about that for a second. There's another phase of matter, meaning there's another phase of existence that is eternal, that can be eternal, right? So this is science catching up with spirituality, right? And showing that, there are things that we have no clue about. But anyway, so let's get back to the point. So the unfolding of your spiritual being, your spiritual side, is just that. That is what your spirit is. It's part of that other phase that lives in timelessness. It doesn't fall into the same category, right? And so what you have to do is you have to treat it as such. You have to resonate with that, because again, when you're talking about these types of things, you're talking about vibrations, you're talking about frequencies, you're talking about energy, right? So, and we all know that you are the energy that you put out. It's just a fact. You are the energy that you put out. If you put out a lot of negative energy, you're going to feel that within yourself. It just doesn't, I didn't create the laws of the universe. It just is what it is. So, when you try to, so that's why it's always important. That's why in a lot of schools of thought, a lot of religions, a lot of cultures, that's why they're always telling you to do right, to do what's right, to do good. That's why, because you are attuning yourself to that frequency, right? And that frequency is a lower vibration, which takes your true self out of the equation, right? Because it cannot be in the same phase as the lower vibration. It just can't, right? It can't. So what happens is you essentially, some people say, some people say you kill your conscience and all kind of stuff, right? Or become cold and all this kind of stuff. Like, all of these things are symptoms of the spiritual disease that you have separated yourself from that part of you that is divine. That part of you that was put into you to make you the best that you can be in life. So when you separate yourself from that, then you open yourself up to a whole lot of other things. That's why some things are not for you. It's not because somebody's, just trying to control and trying to make you do this and that. No, it's because it's not on the same frequency. So that's why. Now, and you can always know. How do I know? Well, we talked about that in our other podcast, right? When you know that it's life, when it promotes life. If it promotes life, then yes, it's positive. It's on that frequency, right? So I want to read something else to you, just talking about this, about, when we're talking about unfolding. It means to allow the universe to align all that is good for you and enjoy the unfolding of it. So it's not only you wanting to manifest all of these things into your existence, it's you enjoying the journey of it happening as well, right? And detaching from expectation of how it should happen. Because, and we talked about this when we talked about the spiritual stages, when you move from operating in the manifestor consciousness, which is a masculine energy, right, to want to do, create. So when you move from that into the next stage, which is primarily feminine, then you move into a state where you allow things to happen, right? You allow, meaning you surrender. It doesn't mean that you give up. Give up is not the word. You surrender, meaning, okay, I know it's going to happen, right? Because you learn that in the manifestor stage. I know that it's going to happen, so I want to allow it to happen. But then you take another step forward and you say, I want it to happen in the best way possible. And I know that I'm part of something greater that it will do that without me having to do anything. I don't have to do anything other than the things that promote life. And you don't have to do that because it's gonna happen. But you want to enjoy the unfolding. So as you enjoy the unfolding, you're doing things, right? And those things look like things that are purposeful within you, right? They're part of your purpose. So as you starting to move in that way, again, the unfolding brings joy, brings enjoyment. Now, oh wow, I'm enjoying watching all of this unfold, watching life unfold through me. I'm enjoying this. This is a pleasure. This is a blessing. I'm enjoying the fact that all that is created for the good of all. All that is created for the good of all. And I enjoy that. I truly do. And being in that space connects you with that divinity that is orchestrating it all, right? That is unfolding it all, right? So being and which brings even more bliss, right? Because you are connected, and the bliss, and we talked about this before, but the bliss is a sensation, it's an emotion, because you're quantifying that which cannot be quantified. So instead of you having, oh yeah, it feels like that, or it feels like this, you can't say what it feels like. All you can say is it feels like bliss, right? It feels like like pleasure immeasurable. That's what bliss is. So bliss. So when you feel that, you're tapping into that timelessness, and you're feeling how it feels with no worry, no suspicion, no low vibrational vibes. You're feeling that. You're feeling it. And so now you feel it, and it feels you. And so as it feels you, being that you have a finite container, that's part of you, it feels that completely. And therefore it has to spill out, right? And so that's the bliss. It may show, tears of joy, as they say. It might be tears of joy. You may, become so emotional that you cry, that you just can't contain. See, that's what, all these words, have meaning to them. And it's a spiritual meaning. I'm not talking about like the difference between English and this language and that. No, I'm talking about the principle behind it. Because what we have to understand is that language is only trying to express something in a form that's universally understood, right? Even though that the universal language is already, you don't really need language for universal language, Somebody from all over the world knows when they feel joy. And we all know. We all know, right? We all know, oh, that's joy. It don't matter what you call it. You can call it anything. And it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't change what it is. You see what I mean? So that's another thing that you start to understand when you look at things like that, because a lot of times we get caught up in, I like to say, we get caught up in the semantics of how we say it. But and don't get me wrong, it's powerful. Your words are powerful. But what you have to understand is what gives the words power. See, I like to go to the root of things. I don't just stay on the surface. So yes, words are power. Words are spells. Words are da 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 da. But what is a spell? What is you're actually there's power behind it. That's why I say it's power behind the words, right? Because that first intention, that first energy spark is really where the power comes from. Now, where does that come from? It was a very interesting, I'll say, experiment that was done. And anybody can do this, anywhere. It's not going to hurt you or anything like that. All right. What it is you close your eyes, you close your mouth, and then you say to yourself whatever your favorite color is, right? So if you did that, right? If you did that just now, listening to this, then you heard someone say your favorite color. You heard a voice, but it wasn't your voice, and there was no vibration. So it's not sound, right? Because that's what sound is. Sound is the vibration, right? So it wasn't that. So again, understand this other phase of matter. It's not tied into the same laws. Meaning it can speak without the need for the physical laws of nature to help make it speak. That's what you're hearing. Sight too, right? Sight. When you close your eyes and you picture your memories, your desires, whatever the case, you're conjuring this picture, this image. But your eyes are not seeing it. And your eyes are what see images, right? It's what translates the light to make an image to your brain. So what's causing that image in your brain? All right? What's causing that? You see? So those are some of the exercises. And again, this was an experiment that, God did with his class, just to get them to understand that there's more to you than the physical. There's more to you than that, and hopefully, more and more people start to recognize that and start to look into themselves, right? And look, because that's a whole, it is, studied, it is covered and everything. But I don't think there can ever be enough people doing that, right? Because again, when you're talking about infinite knowledge and you're talking about infinite, wisdom, and you're talking about life eternal, there is no end. So you could literally, you are going to literally learn something all the time, for all time, right? And again, so that ties into the unfolding of your being, right? So taking those tools and those lessons and applying it helps you to see the unfolding of yourself, and to be, as you release those limiting beliefs about yourself, then you'll be okay with it. You're okay with it, and you'll see things for what they are. And it's not just like, if me and a person, say me and a woman is in a relationship together, and we decided we don't want to be in a relationship together, that's okay. That's literally okay. There's nothing wrong with that, right? So, but it's all about your perception. Because if you're caught up on control and attachment, then you don't see that as okay, right? It actually hurts you. That's when again those emotions cause physiological changes within you that cause you to feel hurt and all these types of things. But I will say this, because this is the society that we live in, right? Because everyone does not think that way, you still have to take all things into consideration, right? You don't just, it's not about separating from anybody. That's what it's not about. It's about connecting with people on a deeper level, right? Deeper than just physical, or deeper than just, mentally, deeper than just, what hobbies we like to do and what things we enjoy together. Life is deeper than that, So are you connected that deep, right? And the answer is always yes, right? Because we're all connected. But the trick is this. As a tree grows and the branches go out into their separate directions, they're still connected to the tree, even though they are all going in different directions. Some get intertwined with each other, some don't, right? Some happen to be on opposite sides, right? So, but the spiritual lesson in all that is just to say that the connection that we all share is at the source, at the root, right? Meaning the inner self, meaning the divine source. We're all connected. We all come from that. So there is no exception to that. Because you can't have life without the divine life, period. So we are all connected through that. That's just what it is. Again, and even science. When you look at DNA and you look back. We're all coming from the same source, and it's life. When we want to put it into one big pot and say, what is it that we come from? Life. We come from life. We are life. So that's what's happening. Life is unfolding, and it is doing that through you. A beautiful way of putting that, in my friend Cordelia last show, she talked about this a little bit on a different scale, because what she was talking about was, trees, being, in communication with each other, but she was talking about separate trees, right? But what people don't understand is the largest organism on this planet is what? Is a tree. Is a tree system, right? That are all connected by the roots. All connected. People thought it was a forest. It is a forest. People thought they were separate trees, but they were all connected, and it was one tree. One tree. So that's really what you're looking at. You're really looking at the true nature of life. You can be your own separate thing, grow up, go through the cycles of life, of the physical, right? Go through the cycles of the physical, and then, return to the source, and then, but you've always been connected to the source, and so has everybody else. So you're all still one. You're all still part of that oneness. So as your soul unfolds, that is your awakening, when you understand that, and you understand it all the way down to a molecular level, that without a doubt that I am directly connected to the outcome of everything else. So there is no reason for me to want anything less for you, because I'm only wanting less for myself. There was another conversation that I was into when we was talking about, if we all were working on our higher selves, no one would feel lonely. No one would feel, sad and all of these things. And that's because working on yourself in that way brings you connectedness to everything else. So as you connect with everything else, if people, again, not to say that you won't experience any of those emotions, because you will, because you're human. I mean, that's part of the experience. But when you do, your neighbor, I empathize with you. I understand exactly what you're going through. You know what? Just think about how different all the systems on the planet, in the world, how different they would be if everything was centered on our higher selves and not, those lower vibrations of lack and non-abundance, right? It would be a totally different picture, totally different. It would, people would be doing what they love, instead of doing what they had to do to make money. You know what I mean? Like, they would do what they love to do, whether that's painting, whether that's farming, whether that's, cooking, whether that's taking care of the elderly, whether that's anything you can think of. Anything you can think of. People have desires. How many times have you heard and seen, people come in to conversations saying, I would have really enjoyed if I could have been this, right? And it's some inspiring thing that, we need more of in the world. But they're not that because they have to work, because they have to pay the bills, right? Because they have to do all these things. You know what I mean? And, it's amazing to me because, we really have to take the things that we've been through, especially in these past couple years. Take the things that we've been through and really ask yourself what's important. If your answer is not community, family, the people you love, you know what I mean? If that's not your answer, I don't know. Because when you're faced with a mass, disorder of the nature of like a pandemic, if that doesn't awaken within you love for your fellow man, fellow woman, you got to realign back with your inner self, with your higher self. That's all that means. Realign with your inner self, and you'll see. Because I use this example too when I talk to people as well. If there was only one person on this planet, or if there was one type of person on this planet, wouldn't that be boring? Like, wouldn't that be like, what is that? That's not life fully expressing itself. Because life, think about all the different types of flowers. How life expresses itself that way. Think about that. Did they have to be different types of flowers? Probably not. but there is. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Plants, different types of fruits, vegetables that you eat. Man, different flavors. Woo. Right? What does that say? What does that say? There's so much in the diversity of it. But that's life expressing to you. I want to be diverse. I want to be many things as one. It doesn't want to just separate it. I don't want to just be many things by myself. I want to be many things as one. And life will always be that. Because it actually, life is life. So we're expressions of that. We're not in control of that. We are that. So, hello, Cordelia. Good evening. Thank you for joining me. Angela Blackberry Street of Washington. Good to see you too. Thank you for joining me again. Ebony says, you're right. Cordelia says, diversity is a gift and a blessing. It is. It truly is. We are a bouquet of flowers at our depth. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and everybody likes different flowers. Some people like the same flowers, but everybody likes different flowers, right? Everybody like different fruit. Everybody like different vegetables, right? But when you even in the name, even in the label, in the genealogy of what plants are, it's still, you can always bring it back to a source. And it's always going to be, okay, this is part of this family, this is part of this family, which is part of this family, and all of these families are all part of this, and that is all part of what? All the way at the center, we're talking about life. It's all part of life, right? Even, and I think Cordelia is the one that brought this up to me too, but it's so true. Like even, which I knew to a certain extent, but I think it was the way she put it, even like rocks, even the inanimate objects, right? But what are they made of? They're made of minerals and all these things. And what are we made of? The same things, the same exact thing. And what I say to people is, at an atomic level, we are all literally the same thing. We are all atoms. It's all about the way that the atoms are arranged that changes the way they look, what they do, blah, 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 blah. Right? We are all the same. So anywhere you look in life, it always points to how connected life is. Period. There is you can't get away from that. If you try to get away from that particular point, then you're not really prepared to face, reality. Like that's as real as it gets. There's always things that we don't know. There's always things that we don't know. We don't know how things happen, So, there's a lot of things we don't know, but that's okay. We do know one thing. We are connected. We know that. So with that, I'm going to end this podcast, and I'm going to just say that I really appreciate everybody who supports the podcast, who listens, who watches. It's so great to be connected with you all, and to make sure that you're looking within yourself, that you're working on yourself. Take time for yourself. It's okay. Take time for yourself. Make sure that you're doing what's best for you. That's okay. And those who are part of life will be okay with that. They don't have a problem with you doing what's okay for you. We need to teach our kids that growing up, right? Your true friends, right? They're going to be your friends regardless. So whether you want to go to medical school, or whether you want to go to to be a astronaut, an engineer, or you want to go be a singer, whatever you want to do, they're going to be your friends, because they want you to be happy. They want you to be you, right? We should do that for each other. We should be that for each other. And with that being said, my good people, the Intelligent Gentleman is signing out. And remember, as always, you are what you listen to. And I'm happy that you're listening to me. And I appreciate you so much. The joy that I get from being a positive influence and having positive impact in this world, it truly brings purpose to me. And I really appreciate you all. Thank you so much. And I'll catch you on the next one. All right. Peace.